Yes, I have seen this. Yes, whoops, it's coming up.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think this is, I see my mother over on this side. This is my mother there.
Okay.
And this looks like my grandma Cook. So I don't know now whether, okay, let's see.
Mildred Mockelman's on here. And I don't know how we knew some of the names. But, so do you...
There's my grandpa. Oh, there's my grandma. Grandma Bull.
Oh, okay.
And this is Louis and Emma Bull.
So we think it's an anniversary.
And I think this is another Bull brother. It was probably for some anniversary, and then these were all the people that attended.
Yeah. You guys, I mean, you weren't alive then.
No.
But, I mean, I can't get over how, look, you think this was like 3 cameras?
I don't know how they
assembled all of them.
I don't know how they did things in those days.
Yeah. But a terrific picture.
It's amazing.
Yes. And
I'm trying to think who some of these young people would be.
Well, Mildred Gabnowitz is in here. Why would she was a Mockelman?
I have no idea.
Unless it was a
I
neighbor.
thought maybe like Hazel. Oh, that looks like Hazel right there.
Okay.
That one is Hazel.
And who are we talking to
Hazel
today,
Bull.
Patsy?
We're talking to JoAnn Bull Vorrath, a graduate of Elkhorn from 1947, and she's agreed to an interview with the Elkhorn Historical Society and for preservation of history and her life in Elkhorn. Oh, is that good enough?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, yeah. So, but yeah, we can, yeah. But I just wanted, I thought maybe you knew how we got that picture.
Would it have been one that Wilbur would have had? In his basement, he had a lot of old ones. I've got a copy of another one he had of the young bulls. And
The younger generation.
The younger generation, my dad's generation.
Okay, your dad's.
That I've got a copy of that from something too.
Okay, so.
That's just that would be my only guess is that when those were taken.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. So we welcome you here.
Thank
so
you.
we have it very informal, but we wanted to talk about like your family. Like, how far do you go back before? I mean, like in America. When did your family come to America?
My grandfather on the Bull side came to America when he was 1 year old. His parents brought him over here. He was the oldest of the family. Oh. The rest, the brothers and 1 or 2 sisters, I'm not real sure right at the moment, were born here after they arrived. Okay. And so he came in, would have been 1868, I believe, because I think he was born in 1867.
Oh my goodness.
And what was his name?
Henry J. Bull. The J, I think, was probably Yoakum, but they used that for all the kids, I think.
Yes, I run into that.
But he always went by Henry J.
Yes, and then
and my grandmother was born here. I'm not sure when her parents came over here.
And that would be your Grandma Cook?
My Grandma Bull.
Oh, Grandma Bull.
And her name was Anna Henrietta Rower.
Oh.
And she was the oldest of her family of either 6 or 7. And so she had, I think, 2 sisters and 3 brothers. So she had, she was born here, and they were married. Grandma was born in 1870, October 1870. And they were married in 1890.
Okay.
And had the 3 boys. Oldest one was Uncle Ben, Christian Bernhard Bull.
Okay.
and who was the parents of Margie and Irvin and Marion, and then my dad, and then Uncle Walt was the youngest one.
Wow.
And his family was Margaret and Dorothy and the oldest one, no, and Roger, but the oldest one. How could I forget that? I know that too.
Sure. Yeah, that's understandable.
And your dad's name?
Pardon?
Your dad's name?
Again.
My dad's name was Henry Carson Bull.
Oh.
And my mother's name was Maria Magdalene Cook. And her parents both came over from Germany when they were probably in their teens anyway. And my grandfather, as I understand, his name was Henry Cook, K-O-C-H. Her name was Mary Mum Cook. And he was a chauffeur for a family in Omaha after he came over here. And my grandmother was a maid in some people's home there. And my understanding was that my grandfather brought the people over to visit where my grandmother was working, and then while they visited, then
The
they
chauffeur and
helping.
Yes.
The helpers were in the kitchen
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
visiting, so
Sure.
that was my understanding.
Sure. Yeah.
So
So yeah, young and then you say like that. Well, the one that could have been married like at 20 was one of your either your grandmother or your mother that was married at the age of 20.
well, my mother was actually, she was 20 when she
Okay.
was married.
Okay.
So, and I'm not real sure on my grandma Cook's side. Grandma Bull then would have been 20
Okay.
if they were 1890, 1870.
Sure.
So they were, people married,
Younger.
the women married younger,
Yeah.
not necessarily the men.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Who were the kids in your family? Your brothers and sisters?
I have 5 brothers and sisters. There were 6 of us all together. My older sister was Eleanor, and Shanahan was her married name. My brother Bob, Robert Bull. My sister Shirley Rosacker. And then I came next. And then my brother Dean Donald Bull, but most people know him by Pete. And then my younger brother was Curtis Bull.
Okay. Yeah. That's your immediate family.
Right.
Yes.
Eleanor was the oldest and born in 1921. And my brother Kurt was the youngest, and he was born in 1934. So
Okay. Yeah.
there's
And
that.
you made your home. Were all of you born when you lived at a certain farm?
Our parents lived there on 186th and Pacific, what is now the Ridges.
Yeah. Shadow Ridge.
Ridges Golf Course and housing. And yes, we were all, my sister Eleanor and I think my brother Bob were born at home, but the rest of us were born in the hospital.
Yeah.
And I have the bill from when I was born in the hospital. My mother was in the hospital from July 16th until July, for 9 days anyway, whatever that would be. And the total bill was like $71.
Yeah. Yeah.
That was 1930.
Yes, in that many days. I mean, they just not today. It seems like they have them that day and they can go out.
Go
that
home,
day.
yeah.
Yeah, go out
Same day.
and stuff. So, yeah, because we've covered pretty much like your birth dates. Everybody is German. The Cook side and the Bull side, they were all Germans from where in Germany?
The Cook side came from what in the later years was East Germany. No, I'll take that back. I'm not sure where the Cook side came from. They came from Germany, I know. It was my Grandpa Bull's side that came from Mecklenburg, which was more on the east side. And Grandma Bull, which is the rowers, came from what is called Rostad, Germany, which is up going towards Hamburg and that little neck that goes up north towards Denmark, in that area. My sister one time was on a tour, and they were coming up to Rostad, Germany, and she mentioned to the bus driver that that's where her grandmother's family came from. So he said, well, we're a little bit ahead of time, so we'll just drive through. So they did, and she said it was very interesting to see so many of the names that are from in Douglas County, and that people apparently came from that area.
Sure.
They went into a church, and there was the memorial board of people lost during World War II, and there were names of familiar names from here in Douglas County.
Oh, great. Yeah. It's just I have you traveled over?
The only place I've gone was to London once.
Oh, you went.
Spent 9 days in London one time.
Okay.
But that's all.
Yeah. Did you have the end to go back to Germany at any time?
Well, I guess yes and no. I just didn't have funds.
Yeah.
To do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, I basically by myself from the time I was 20 years old. My husband, Gerald Remedy, that I married when I was 25, and we had one daughter born in 1959, and then he died of cancer in 1962.
Okay.
So then I remarried for a short 2-year period. But other than that, I've been alone and
Single mother to raise Beth.
There just
Yeah.
wasn't ability to do it financially. So
Sure, yeah. No. I'm surprised some young man didn't snap you up. You're such a charmer anyway, but
well, I guess
yeah.
maybe I was a little shy after
shy.
that.
But you seem very independent too.
Well, I
Yeah.
have been because I've had to.
Yeah.
After Jerry died, I never owned a car.
Oh.
So I drove, but not a whole lot. So I went out and I got the book that always came in the car, and I read that about when you should get the oil changed and tires that you should have and all those different things.
Right,
and I just learned things on my own that way.
Sure. So, growing up then, and like, did your parents, did they attend school here in Douglas County too? The one-room schoolhouses?
I can't really tell you about my dad. I mean, I know he went to school, and it was probably at Lone Hill, which is District 48, which is where we all went. And since we lived on the family farm, that's probably where he went. Mm-hmm. And he went to the University of Nebraska Lincoln College of Agriculture, where he was very successful. And my understanding was that they had the last 2 years of high school and 2 years of college down there.
Okay.
And he graduated from there in 1914, and he was president of his class, of his senior class.
Wow.
And not only that, he also belonged to what they called the Pershing Rifle Association, which was probably something like the ROTC now. Mm-hmm. And he was the commanding major of the 2nd Battalion of that regiment at the University of Nebraska College of Agriculture.
Oh, gosh.
And
yes.
and he did very well, and he made lots of friends that he continued to have the rest of his life, and he would talk about and different things.
Did he serve in the military, like World War I?
No, Uncle Ben did, and
Uncle
I
Ben.
don't know if they only took one out of a family at that time, and Uncle Ben was the oldest.
Yes.
And so he never did. He I do have a copy of his registration
Okay.
into the military. Or
You had to
whatever.
register, sure.
So he had to register for the
Sure.
draft.
Yes.
So
Yeah. We also have we got the family, like the diary of Ben Bull,
Yes,
and I come from, I don't know who we got it from.
Margie probably.
Margie? Okay. Yeah. So we have a copy of that here in our records of.
I read
him.
that off and on, reread at different times, and the letters home and the different
Yes.
ones and everything.
Yes. And his wife.
Yeah.
The letters to his wife and stuff. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
letters home to Grandpa and Grandma,
Sure.
or to my dad, or
Yeah.
to Uncle Walt.
Right. Yeah.
They were all in
Yes.
there. It was the kids. I don't think knew about it until after Aunt Elizabeth died,
Oh.
and they found all these letters.
Mm.
So that's when they decided it would be good to put them into a.
A family,
Yeah.
kind of like a diary.
And it is,
Yes,
too.
it is. I was hoping that when they were doing a significant year of World War One,
Mm-hmm.
they had a display down at Durham Museum.
I went down to it.
Did you go down to it?
Yes.
And I thought, man, I wish that diary could have been down there. And then even to talk about another like Bill Meyer.
Uh-huh.
He did not serve overseas, but Ben did.
Mm-hmm.
Ben was over there.
Uncle Ben, yeah.
And he had that gas that.
Yes, and that forever was a problem with him. And he had pneumonia several different times in his life because of that. I remember one time when he was so ill. And he was in, at that time, a tent, an oxygen tent
Sure. Yeah.
at home. And my mother went over to help Aunt Elizabeth take care of him. And everybody was very concerned for his life at
Yes.
that point.
So in your family, talking about Ben Bull, and then just recently, the soldier that or the Navy guy that.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Calvin Bull.
Calvin Bull. They just found the submarine just
Yes.
last year. And so Calvin, that was, and you were on television.
Yes.
I remember you seeing that, saying and talking about that.
I remember when that happened because I was would have been 11 or 12 at that time. And so then I remember that too. And he was in my sister Eleanor's high school class,
Okay.
graduating class. And just remember that and the years since and the never knowing. And now hopefully his kids have been notified. His nephews and nieces have been
Right.
notified, hopefully.
His relatives, that all have that.
Uh-huh,
So, yeah.
uh-huh.
So,
But
yeah.
there's something in knowing that they're at peace.
Yes.
And also that it isn't going to be moved.
Right. Oh, it wasn't. It isn't going to be removed. Oh, from.
No.
Okay.
So that, that's their final resting place.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, and I know in that television interview, you said when you heard on the news, the harder,
Mm-hmm.
and you said, "Oh my gosh!" And you're 11 or 12, but yet you had heard the story on down through your life that you knew, man, that's got to be.
Well, and through the years, different years, there's been articles about the harder, either on the networks or
Sure.
anything like that. Now with there's internet,
Sure.
and so knew what had happened, but didn't know exactly where. Knew
Sure.
it was in the
Philippines.
vicinity
Yeah.
of the Philippines,
Yeah.
but
Mm-hmm.
and it just, and then I remember Darlene Backus, she sang at the memorial for Calvin.
Oh.
And so she at times would look things up too, because she kind of had an attachment for having performed at the services.
Sure.
So,
Yeah.
the harder I always knew that name.
Yeah, I was wondering how, you spoke about it and I didn't realize you were only 11 or 12.
Yeah.
And of course, you attended the same one-room schoolhouse that your father did.
Mm-hmm.
How about your mother?
My mother would have gone to District 13, which was the Iron Bluff School,
Yes.
which is across from where Elkhorn South is now.
Yes.
And she went through the 8 grades, was set to go to high school, and then her parents told her she couldn't go. And she was so disappointed and never got over that feeling of being wrong for that, she should have been allowed to go. And everybody from her on down, the other 6 all got to go. And so she tried to do everything in her power to see that her kids were not deprived of higher education if that's what they wanted to do.
Sure. And then her husband had gone on to the university. And
Yeah.
he did that before they were married.
Yes. He was
did.
7 years older than my mom.
Than your mom. Okay.
And so that,
Yeah.
that part,
Yeah.
I don't know, so many times I've wished I asked her lots of different things. I know she did sewing for people, and I thought she went to some place to learn more sewing in Omaha, and that. But other than that, of course, then she was 19 or 20 when they got married.
Yeah,
So.
yeah. Okay, so then now you say Eleanor was the first. Now Eleanor gave us that picture
Yes.
on the wall.
Yes.
Her and the Shanahan lady came and we got that picture
Jimmy.
of the Lone Hill School.
Yes.
That was at 180th and Pacific.
180th and Pacific.
Yes.
And
yeah.
that's the one that I went through 8 years.
Yes. Yeah.
When I started grade school, there were 12 in the first grade, which in a country grade school is unheard of.
Many? Too many.
12 in
12.
first grade.
Yeah.
And so then the next year, we 12 went to the second grade, and my brother Pete came in first grade, and he was all alone. He was the only one in the first grade. So then when we went to third grade, he came into second grade. Our teacher could not keep him busy. I don't know how many books he went through in the first month, trying for her to keep him busy reading and doing things like that. So then she talked to our parents, to my parents, I imagine, and asked if it'd be all right to see how he got along with us in the third grade.
Okay.
And what she did. So from there on, through 12th grade in high school, I had my brother Pete with me.
That is so cool.
And you weren't even twins.
And nobody asked me if it was all right.
Yeah. Oh, can you remember your first teacher ever there?
Yes, I remember 2. There was a Miss Nona, that we called her, and her sister taught the other half of the school. I think she taught 1st through 4th. And then the sister taught the upper grades, the 5th through 8th. And then we had A. Mildred Cleaver, something like that. A. Mildred, I'm forgetting her last name. I just remember the A. Mildred. And she taught us from probably 4th grade on.
Okay.
And she was the only teacher in the school then. And so I do remember her.
So then, did the one room schoolhouse, that one there on 180th, did it? Then the farms, they didn't change. So the population of the school, did it continue to grow as people?
Not as it did with the 12 of us.
Okay.
In that one grade. That was
Okay.
large. Normally they would maybe be 4 or 5, something like that in the school.
Right.
I'm trying to remember my brother Kurt. When he came, I think there were 6 or 7 in his grade. And that was kind of a normal.
And you had no kindergarten back then?
No kindergarten.
Yeah. So, yeah, that was just...
All of us graduated from high school when we were 16. Except Pete, he was 15.
Yeah. I mean, he couldn't even drive a car.
Oh, no.
License, nothing. Yeah, no.
He went down to University of Nebraska when he was 16.
Oh, gosh, yeah.
So,
Back to your father. Going on to college, 2 years of high school and 2 years of college. You mentioned something about his diploma.
yes, I do have it.
Yeah.
This is his diploma.
Oh, look at that. Nice Nebraska Agriculture, 1914. And there, oh gosh, yeah. And then, does it have the actual, I don't know, is it in the middle? Or there's the program?
They had like several days of graduation
Yeah,
activities.
Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday.
And the next one here, I think, has
Karsten Bull.
Henry
Karsten Bull. Yeah. And he was president of his class. Oh gosh, that's so neat.
And then I think almost the next to the last page is the regiment.
The class roll.
One after that.
Yeah. Look at how large that is.
That was their class, yeah.
Yeah.
And you remained friends and acquaintances with a lot of them. I remember going to Columbus to visit them and things like that.
After that, a second lieutenant of the University of Nebraska Cadet School of Agriculture. Oh my gosh.
Then I think the next page has,
2nd Battalion.
he was the major of it.
And the major of that one. Yeah. Do you remember Black Jack Pershing?
Yes.
Now, was he like a commander there at the?
No.
Not then?
Pershing in war, as for Pershing the general.
Yes.
And I think these were just named after him.
Oh,
and
okay.
here's my husband or my dad in his uniform, dress uniform. Mm-hmm. And always as a kid, I remembered that sword, Mother displaying it having it on the wall in a brackets and on the wall. Mm-hmm. And my niece has it now. So.
Oh yeah. No, some of those things you'd love to keep, but
Yeah.
I just to take it. There he's gone, and then he's at home. All your children. Is he a farmer where he goes out and has crops? And I mean, he does the full thing. Has the animals, has a crop to raise, maybe, that way.
We didn't have, at one point I guess they had pigs, but after our home place burnt down in 1936, the entire place burnt down. And we never had pigs. And we only had milk cows. We didn't have any other farm animals. We had a team of horses, and of course you had the tractor and stuff. But yes, it was, for the most part, he was corn and soybeans. Although in some years I remember wheat, because I remember as a family, all of us going out after supper and shocking the wheat to be ready for the threshers the next day.
Sure.
And of course, when the threshers came, well, then the neighbors all came to help everybody else, and the ladies would come to help get the dinner ready for everybody. And so there was always good food, lots of pies, things like that. But the farmers always helped, whether it would be threshing or sometimes in binding hay and alfalfa and stuff.
And it was a neighborly thing where everybody helped everybody else. How strict? I've read some books where the farmers, strict according to their religion, like they really never worked on Sunday.
Well, nothing was open on Sundays.
Okay.
Sundays didn't start opening. Places didn't start opening on Sundays as far as for shopping.
Yeah. Would you?
Please. Until maybe 1950s.
Okay, yeah.
Something like that, I think. So, yeah, I do not remember my dad going out. My brothers would help on the farm, too.
Sure.
But I don't remember them going out on Sundays and doing that.
And doing that.
Sundays would be church and noon meal, and then either visiting or sometimes you'd have company come visit you.
Sure.
Relatives and things.
Yeah, and the Bull family was large, so you could get together. And
Well,
you had
and so
a lot of cousins.
I was going to say my mother's family was large.
Oh, sure.
Because she was 5th out of 11. And so, and most of them lived around here. The farthest away was Gretna or Omaha.
Oh, wow.
The
Yeah.
rest all lived around here.
Yeah. So as a typical little farm girl, what were your duties?
I really,
Didn't have
us
chores?
girls, the boys did the outside work and never had to do anything on the inside. We girls did the inside work and never had to go and do anything. I remember going and help shucking corn a time or two, but only because I wanted to, because it was fun. I'd be with my two brothers.
Sure, sure.
And, but my work would be helping my mother with the house. If she needed me helping her with cooking, always doing the dishes.
Mm-hmm. How about washing clothes? That had to be a real pain back then, wasn't it?
Oh my gosh. Having you'd have to have a boiler full. You had a gas stove in the basement with a big boiler filled with water, and that's where you dip that out to put that in the washing machine. And then you had to have 2 different rinse tubs. And so then again, you'd have to put the water in those, and everything had to go through that wringer washer, whether it was from the washer part or into the first rinse, and from the first rinse into the second, and then to get it out into where you'd hang clothes up on. I was always hanging clothes up on the outside line.
Was there a certain day of the week that washing was done?
I think we mostly did it on Mondays.
Okay. Yeah.
But mostly.
Yes. Yeah.
But I'm not real sure either of that. So.
Yeah.
And when were baths?
Pardon?
When were the baths?
That you took a bath on
Oh,
Saturday
yeah,
night.
that was usually Saturday night.
Yeah. Okay.
And you didn't drain the bath water after each bath. There were probably at least 2 of you that got in the same water. So.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I remember the night our house burned down.
Oh, yeah.
Like I say, I was 5, not quite 6. And I had taken a bath the night before, that night, and went to bed. And in the hurry to get there were 5 of us kids at home, get us all out of there and everything, I couldn't find my shoes. Probably only had 1 pair of shoes. And I can tell you to this day where they were. They were behind the door in the bathroom.
Okay.
I had taken them off when I took a bath that night. So.
Okay. Yeah.
And they took we kids up to Aunt Lily's place in Elkhorn.
Okay.
So
What happened? How did the fire start?
it started with a defective lamp on light on the back side of the barn. And it was a terrible, terrible windy night in early May. And it swayed back and forth until it shorted out. And then it started the barn on fire. And because of the strong winds were from the east, then it started the buildings to the west on fire, switched to the south, and then that's when the house and there was a summer kitchen and...
So the whole house, the whole farm, buildings, barns, outbuildings, in-house,
I
gone.
think the only thing that didn't burn was a pig shed. I think was the only thing that didn't burn.
So for a while, where did you live?
We lived, the neighbors owned a farm that had no one in it, about a half mile north of Pacific, between Dodge and Pacific. And we lived there until, I think, October is when we moved into the new house.
Okay. Did you replace the barns and
Just the barn and the house.
just the barn and the
And
house?
then maybe a chicken house, I think, because we did have chickens later, so we must replace that.
Now, what year again was that?
1936.
1936. During the Depression, when things were really...
Things were really...
Did you have insurance on anything?
They had insurance, but the insurance man came out the day after the fire, and the folks didn't know what they had lost, what they had or what, and so they were very underpaid on their insurance, and
Sure.
so it was pretty tough.
Yeah. Yeah, because and you lost a lot of family records too, did you, at that time? Had you acquired quite a bit? You got this stuff saved, when
Yeah.
you think about that.
Yeah, yeah.
But there, I mean, like today, we have a storm and you think, what can I grab? And
Yeah.
me, I get my purse, and stuff. So I was just wondering, like you said, you were what, 5 or 6?
I was 5, I'd be 6 in July, and that was May.
Yeah.
And Pete would have been 4, and Kurt would have been 1.
Oh my gosh.
And
You made it all safely out.
yes, my sister Shirley would have been, if I was 5, she was 10, and my brother Bob 11. And my sister Eleanor would have been 14, but she was living in Elkhorn with my grandparents going to high school.
Oh.
So she wasn't there
Mm-hmm.
at home then. And I can't remember whether my brother Bob stayed back with my dad or what. But the rest of us, I know the neighbor lady took us in her car to bring us to Elkhorn.
Sure.
I remember that.
Did we have a fire department?
Elkhorn had a fire department, but they bought out the water truck, and that's really about what they had, the water truck. And then they got water from our cistern, but the cistern went dry. And I think City of Omaha brought out a water truck too, but the wind was so fierce. A burning shingle was found in the old Krager place, if you know where that was, just south of Dodge on
Yes.
192nd.
Yes.
He found one of the burning shingles on his place.
Man.
So that's how bad the wind was.
The wind was.
Mother had just washed that day, so she had the clothes were in a couple of baskets. So we had the clean clothes from that.
Wow.
So they took them and put them on the knoll west of the house, where that was saved in the grove west of the house.
Mm-hmm.
And so there were some clothes like that and everything. But no, I think people got some of the furniture out and some of that out. And I remember
What time of night? What time?
about 2:00 in the morning.
2 in the morning.
My sister Shirley and I were sleeping in the south bedroom upstairs, and she woke up and she saw that the barn was on fire. So she went to go downstairs to tell my dad about it, and she thought, oh, he'll need help. My Uncle Emil was living with us and working for us, and for my dad, and so she went and woke Emil up, and then went down and told the folks. So when they built the new house, my parents took the bedroom on the south side of the house. My mother wanted that
Oh.
where she could overlook the rest of the place.
Sure,
So,
sure. Yeah. So that was probably the most traumatic thing to happen in your childhood. It sticks with
Well,
you to this day.
there were 2 things. That was the most. The other one was when my brother Kurt was born. My dad had just come home from the hospital to tell us, and a terrible storm came up, and a tornado took our windmill down just west of the house, probably about 50 feet west of the house. And I remember my Uncle Emil grabbing both myself and my brother Pete and taking us to the basement. And so I do remember that. But so those are the 2 things. To this day, I still am. There's 2 things. I'm very attentive to storms.
Yes.
and dislike
Yes.
them. And also candles. Fires. I'm afraid of fires.
Yeah.
You will never find a candle in my house. People give me candles and I politely give them to somewhere else because I'm just so
Sure.
afraid of fire.
Yes. I mean, it's just one of the natural things. There's light, but it's dangerous.
Right.
You just can't have that kind of stuff. But now, you say, did you have electricity pretty much?
Yes.
Later?
Because there was electricity when that
Lantern?
shorted out.
Sure.
And that was 1936. So for sure we had in 1936.
Rural electric.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yes, so did electricity? I mean, if you're born, you would have. Have you been ever without electricity?
I don't remember ever being without it because I do not ever remember living where we had lanterns or any kind of non-electric
Sure.
lamps.
Yeah.
I don't remember ever having any of those. The only time there ever was if power went out.
Oh.
We always had a couple of kerosene lamps.
Sure. Yeah. So like when you talked about a washing machine, then you could plug in that
Right.
thing and yeah.
Right.
And
Yeah,
and
because
go
that
with it.
wasn't gas powered.
Mm-mm. Okay, some maybe were earlier.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
probably were.
Yeah. So like Lily Roffs, she was a cook and like a first cousin to you?
Who?
Lily Roffs.
Lily Ross is my aunt.
Oh, is your aunt?
She's a sister of my mother.
Okay.
Lily Rolfs, Catherine Bull, Amanda Severs,
Okay, that's
and my mother.
okay.
They had one other sister who died when she was like 21 when a gas iron exploded on her. She went to refill it. Apparently it was too hot and it exploded on her and burnt her so badly. She did probably live now, but because she lived for 3 weeks,
Oh.
but then died as a result of that. So
So that would have been a first cousin to you then.
she'd have been an aunt.
Oh, she'd have been an aunt, just
She
like
was
Lily.
between
Okay.
she was between my mother and Lily.
Sure. So then Emil is your uncle.
Yes,
Okay.
he's my mother's brother, one of the younger brothers.
Okay, I was reading an article the other day about the young guys that were in the service, and Emil, even though I think he was like 42.
He was 35 when
35?
he was selected because he had never married and had no children.
Yeah, and yeah. So, but Ellen Rolfs often said that he was so he said, Emil, they took him and he was so old, you know. He said, you know, and then we have Emil's coat down here. We got it from Nancy Moore, Adeline.
Yes.
Yeah, she, her daughter Nancy brought it here, and we have Emil's coat, the big army jack. I mean, yeah, it's here in the museum. And I mean, I knew Emil personally too because he lived across the street from me. So yeah, he was always a very nice guy.
A
Just
nice
really,
man.
yeah. And did you get your interest in golf from Emil? He worked at that golf course.
Yeah, but I never played there while he was working there.
Sure, yeah,
So.
but no.
But speaking of him, we were at Aunt Amanda and Uncle Bill Seaver's 15th wedding anniversary on July 5th, 1941. No, 1944, because that's when D-Day was.
Okay.
And it was their 15th wedding anniversary. The parents were all in the house having their party, and we kids were all down in the barn we had a radio going and music and all that kind of stuff. And all of a sudden, the music stopped and the radio broke in to announce that we had landed on D-Day had begun and had landed, yes. And we all knew, of course, Emil was over in England for, I can't remember whether it was 6 or 8 months before that. And so we knew he very well could be and was in the
landing.
In the invasion.
Yes.
And so then we went up to the house, of course, and told our parents about it. And so, and at that time, then it would be in July 6th over in France and England.
Sure. Yeah.
So.
Yeah. D-Day. Yeah. I always remember D-Day too. One of the questions we always got to ask in history, but they don't teach history like they did back.
They don't.
You know, I'm disappointed, but some of those dates are so important as we go along in life, you know, and then we celebrate them, you know, and like Memorial Day is coming up, and at the cemetery, the daughter of Ben Bull gave us a 1949 picture, And in it, you can see her dad with his American Legion cap. You know, you can see Father Brock, and you can. And this is Memorial Day. The men are in their suits, and the 4-H band is playing, and we've got that. I don't know if we've ever put it in one of our calendars, but I thought it was so neat.
Yeah.
When we think about our community,
Right.
because that cemetery is really from rural Douglas County.
Yes. Yes.
And so Valley and all of us that, had
Yes,
people
from
in it.
all the western Douglas County.
Yes, yeah, was all over there at Prospect Hill. And Prospect Hill came in the news again this last year with the tornado.
Yes.
And so,
Yes, and now we got to get trees for it.
yes, and
It just,
yeah,
I'm glad they cleaned up the trees that
Yes.
were destroyed, and
Yes.
they were not good, and so it looks better and
Yes.
everything, and now if we can, all of us kind of help and get
yes,
trees replanted there.
right,
Because my
yes.
parents are there, my brother Pete is there, and of course not my grandparents, they're across from Boys Town there, and
Oh, yes,
but my Cook relatives are all
there,
here.
okay.
Of course,
Did you-
Uncle Ben and Aunt Elizabeth, and Uncle Walt, I think, is there too. Their family.
Walter Bull. Did Walter Bull move here to Elkhorn and lived on the corner up here
Uncle
off of
Walt
Main?
did.
Yeah.
He lived there, as far as I know, after he and Aunt Hattie were married. When my parents got married, my grandpa and grandma moved to town in the new house that you had on the calendar,
Yes.
and my father and mother were there, and also living in that house was Uncle Walt, the teacher at District 48, because Grandpa and Grandma Bull always boarded the teachers.
Okay.
So Harriet Arms was her name who lived there. And then a nephew of my grandpa's, whose mother had a breakdown or something, and so they raised him and took him. So they moved to town, and my mom and dad, there were 5 in that household there
But that's
from the
a big,
time they were
yeah,
married.
But it was a big house.
Oh yeah, it
Yeah,
was a
it's
big house.
home. Yeah.
And my mother she talked about what good times they had when they
Sure.
were the
Yes.
5 young people there.
Yes. Oh,
And
yeah.
Where was this house?
It's just off of Pacific Street here in town, or 205th,
205th, and
and
it's
it's the second house.
second house up from when you come off of 204th.
Woolens, Tom Woolens is on the
Yes.
corner, and then Higgins lived there when but
That's who my dad sold Grandma's house to Higgins
To
when
Higgins,
Grandma
that's-
died.
yeah, and that was Higgins' House of Trophies. Shirley and her husband, that had that. So, but
Chuck, was that his
yes,
name?
yeah, Higgins, yeah, and yeah. So, but no, it's just a really neat area because I was not allowed to go beyond that street
That
because
corner.
the farm people had retired. And they lived on that street, and we were not allowed to ride bicycles or anything because it was just, Mom said, no, you don't disturb those older people up there. and stuff, so we just didn't do that. But,
Yeah, at that point, Grandma's sister lived where Woolens live now.
Oh,
My grandma's sister, which was Catherine Glant.
oh,
Uncle Bill and Aunt Catherine Glant
oh,
lived there, which was Pete Glant's parents.
sure.
They lived there, and Roy Glant's parents, they lived there. Those two were killed in a car accident.
Oh.
So when
Yeah, and I was always trying to figure out, Dr. Tanner came to town, and his wife was a sister to Bobby.
Ruth that married Dick,
Yes, okay, Dick Glant. Yes,
and she lived with them when.
yes.
That's how
Yeah.
Dick met her. then.
That's how Dick Glant met her, and yeah, it's a small world.
Yeah.
Like you got in one of the deals, it shows me that you had 33 in your class when you graduated.
Yes,
And a lot of bulls.
there were 6 bulls.
6 bulls.
We beat the 1942 class that had 5 bulls.
Oh, okay. Yeah, a lot of bull. But
My brother Pete kept up to make the 6th one, I guess.
oh, okay. And then when I think the Gordy bull and he married Margaret Betts.
Right.
Well, then that turned Margaret Betts into a bull, So
Right.
that added one more to the
Right.
bull roster family or family roster or whatever. But
Plus,
yeah.
I had 2 cousins in the class
Oh.
besides that. Jerry, she was later, Severs, Mowinkle,
Okay.
and Alan Ross.
Okay.
So I had
yeah,
2 cousins.
sure.
I had a lot of relatives in that class.
Yeah. It's a really neat thing. I wanted to ask too. I said here, what's your first memory? And was that when you were talking about when your youngest brother, Curtis,
Yes,
was
that
born?
would be my first memory.
And that tornado that took the windmill down.
Yeah.
And then the next memory is,
The fire.
oh yeah, okay, yeah,
That would be my next one.
okay, in 1936, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, did you have phone service?
We didn't have a phone until maybe, I don't think we had a phone while I was in high school.
No.
I think maybe either late 40s, 49, 48, 49, or early 50. And it was a party line
Sure.
with, I don't know, at least 8 on the party line, the neighbors.
Yeah. That became kind of you had nothing to do. There was no television to watch. You could listen
Do a little
on the phone.
rubbernecking.
Yes,
That's what they call
yes, yeah. It was probably you have here about 1940 maybe that you had gotten them. Do you remember your dad going from horses to tractors and that kind of stuff?
I think he pretty much had a tractor pretty early, but he also used horses
He did.
a lot. I mean, yes, I do remember him using horses. And we used horses when they harvested the corn, shucked
Sure.
the corn.
Okay,
Then you would have the bang boards on the
sure, yeah.
on that and throw it against that.
Mm-hmm.
And one time, we only had one set of horses. So then when they were shucking corn and they needed another team and wagon, then they borrowed Uncle Ben's team of horses in the wagon. And my little brother Kurt and I went out. Wasn't too far from the house where they were finishing up that field to ride in on the load of corn. And right before, I can't remember who was shucking the corn, right before he got on to take care of the horses decided to go home to Uncle Ben's.
Oh,
And my brother Kurt and I were on that runaway with that corn that's sliding, and somebody caught them when we got in the middle of the place. But oh my, that was a scary time.
yeah.
So I do
Remember horses?
I do remember horses and corn picking.
So yeah,
And like I say, I went out a time or two with my brother Bob and my brother Pete, and I would be in the middle, and Bud because he would get 2 rows and I would only do 1, and Pete would do 1 and pick up what we missed, what we threw and missed the wagon. So,
yeah,
but I went because it was fun.
sure.
Only reason I ever helped milk cows was because it was fun. I never was a good milker. I'm sure they had to finish milking the cow. So, and I didn't last for maybe 1, but
Yeah.
only for the companionship of my
Yeah.
brother and my dad.
Okay, let's stop here for a while because it's 8th grade. I'm talking about like when you're going to go off and going on to high school. So can we stop here for a little bit and we'll just take a little break?
Sure.
Is that,
Let's
yeah.
see if I want